Hi friends, this is Trish and welcome to Happy Holy Healthy Life. I'm really excited about today's video because I plan to summarize for you over 300 hours of motivational content. Now, what in the world am I talking about? Well, for more than half of my life, which is, I don't know, mathematically, maybe about 17 years, I have been consuming motivational content on time management, productivity, overcoming laziness and procrastination, time management hacks, everything. And when it was like a long time ago back in the day, that was like Brian Tracy audiobooks, like Eat That Frog. In modern times, there's a bajillion YouTube videos on it, but normally they'll just cover like a few tips, but I literally am going to try to cram them all into this one video. They're going to be all mixed together, so if you're able to, I would love for you to stick to the end because you never know, you might find the tip that's going to change your life, that's going to stop you from procrastinating, stop you from being lazy, and help you get your rear in gear, as they say in Texas. So let's go ahead and jump right in. So the most famous tip of all is the Eat That Frog tip. I'm sure you've probably heard it, but just in case you haven't, there's an old Mark Twain legend that says, if you have two big, fat, gross, ugly, nasty frogs, which one are you going to start with? You want to start with the ugliest, fattest, nastiest frog first. So what does that mean? Applied to your everyday life. Basically, we all have tasks that we have been dreading and putting off because they're stressful or they're hard or they're not fun. Well, really start trying to put that thing that you've been dreading first in your day, whether it's when you wake up or the first block of free time you have at work, and get that out of the way, and you'll find that a huge weight is lifted off your shoulders. You're going to start getting momentum to do these smaller tasks, and you're just going to feel so much better about yourself. It's going to energize you. The next tip is, we'll call it the Mary Kay tip. It's the 6th list. Basically, according to folklore, Mary Kay Ash, the famous makeup lady, basically would make a list every single day of the 6 most important things that she had to get done that day. And kind of like the Eat That Frog concept, they were prioritized according to the first thing on the list would be the most important and just organized according to that method. So that even if she only got 3 things done that day, they were the 3 most important things that she needed to get done. So her day was a success. She wasn't wasting all of her time, sending out envelopes, for example, when she needed to be ordering merchandise. She was doing what was most important, so she was never getting behind, and she built $1 billion industry back in the day where it was kind of unheard of for women. So the Mary Kay method is to make that 6th list, prioritize it top to bottom, most important to least important. What you want to do is whatever does not get done that day, you just move it on to the next day's list, and you just keep doing that forever for the rest of your life to be productive. Okay, the next method is called the timer method. I first learned about this when I was about 15 years old with Fly Lady. If you guys ever heard of her, she would advocate doing timers of like 15 minutes to get any and everything done. There's also the Pomodoro method where you set the timer for 25 minutes and take 5-minute breaks. You repeat that about 4 times, and then you're going to take a longer 15-minute break, and then you just keep going. So the concept is to use a timer, and I promise you this one actually is life-changing. You would never believe it, but it works so well. Also, if you really have a huge block to doing a task and even 15 minutes of doing it sounds too much, you'd be shocked. You can set the timer for 2 minutes or 5 minutes and get the same effect. Okay, the next one is setting up rewards for yourself. Oftentimes we'll start out the day kind of scrolling the phone, or if we're having like just a really lazy day, maybe we'll start the day out with Netflix or, social media, but see if you can rearrange your day by doing your hard work first, just like the Eat That Frog method, but then you're going to want to make the fun things you would normally do, like social media, Netflix, whatever, make that your reward. Now, some people will set an actual time in the day and say, like no fun TV or fun media until after 8 p.m. Or some people, if they can be disciplined enough with it, will, maybe after doing 3 Pomodoros worth of work, maybe they'll give themselves a 30-minute, Netflix show. So it's kind of up to you. You have to know yourself about what you can handle in terms of the temptation of media and scrolling, but it's really good to make those things your reward and make the work come first. Okay, the next one is a really simple one. It's simply music. There's been scientific studies done about music's effect on our ability to work and do hard things. So you would be shocked if you're really dreading, a cleaning task or something. You can put on some awesome high, beat music, whatever you like, and see how much easier your work goes. Okay, the next one is called the small win principle. Now, it's a little bit opposite of the eat that frog technique, and you've got to figure out what works best for you. For some people, the concept of doing the hardest thing first actually shuts them down and they're completely unable to work. So if that is you, if you're that kind of person, maybe you've got to build up to the eat that frog method. Maybe you need the small win method. Now, the small win method is to take something, anything that you need to do, and break it down to its smallest components. So I'm just going to pick an easy one. Let's say that I wanted to do, P90X workout video, and I'm just like frozen over it because I'm like, oh, this is going to hurt. This doesn't seem like fun. I don't want to do it. Well, I would literally break that down into the smallest parts. Like, well, what is the first thing I would need to do? Well, I would need to get the DVD out of the case. That's step one. Step two, I need to put the DVD in the DVD player. Like, literally break it down that much and say, okay, can I just negotiate with myself to just take the first step? And then maybe after it's playing, the next smallest thing would be the warm up. So I can ask myself, okay, can I handle the warm up? And you'll find for a lot of people, once you break things down into tiny tasks and just focus on doing that task, eventually motivation will magically appear and you'll be able to keep going. And you can apply that to absolutely anything and see if that'll work for you. This is another great time for a timer. So for example, if you have a huge test to cram for, and hopefully you're not doing it at the last minute, but if you are, and just the thought of opening up that chemistry book is horrible, take out your timer and say, I'm literally going to set the timer for 10 minutes and I'm going to start studying. And more often than not, you'll find that once you get started, then the motivation will appear. And that can be a tip all in of itself. So let's make that the next tip. Don't wait to feel like doing what you're supposed to be doing, because all too often the feeling and the want to is not there. That's why there's so many videos on how to do things that you don't want to do. So if you can take small steps and get the ball rolling, you're going to find that motivation will appear after action. So think, if I want to be motivated, if I want to feel like doing it, I have to take small actions first. And I promise you the motivation will appear. The next one is a bigger one. It's called the values method, okay? This is like a more deeper, contemplative lifestyle thing, but at some point, hopefully soon, I want you to write down your top 5 values. And if you need help with that, you can just totally Google values list and see what pops up and really figure out what you want your life to be about. So for example, one of my values in life is peace, because peace is the opposite of stress and nobody likes feeling stressed out. So the idea is, once you've got your values established, you want to link the hard tasks that you're doing with one of your values. So for example, I hate cleaning. Let's just be honest. I really do not enjoy cleaning things, but I value peace. So if I can figure out my why behind cleaning, I clean my house so I can have a sense of peace. There's a lot more motivation that ends up happening by kind of picturing the end, thinking about the ultimate goal of how I'm going to feel. Another one, for example, is I'm a school teacher by trade. So lesson planning isn't that fun, but one of my values is to make a difference in my students' life. So maybe the act of sitting there, filling out boxes doesn't sound fun, but if I think I'm doing this because I want to impact students' lives, then that can be the thing that kind of gets me going. So think about your values and see with every task that you don't want to do if you can link your values to that task. All right, the next one, we'll call it renewing your mind. So a lot of us that struggle with procrastination really have a mindset that says sort of the lazy life is the best life. The procrastinating life is the best life. We have a belief inside somewhere that doing hard things hurts and then that's it. So naturally, as humans, we're wired to do what feels good. We're wired to do things we think is going to make us happy. So if we have the internal belief that laying around and scrolling Netflix is actually what makes us happy, then it's going to be very difficult to do something that we have convinced ourselves is just hard or painful. So this is, again, a longer thing, just like the values thing. It's kind of almost a daily thing, but you want to start changing your mindset to, I enjoy doing hard things because it produces a life I love. You've got to literally map out what the life of procrastination and laziness is getting you versus the life you want. And for most of us, we want success, we want to be healthy, we want to make a difference in other people's lives. But if we're living a life of chronic laziness and procrastination, then that's standing in the way of everything we want. So we've got to change our mindset again and link up the idea and the understanding that these small, hard things that I'm doing every day is actually creating happiness. It's actually creating a life I love. But that's definitely a longer process, that is every bit worth it. Okay, the next one is called parenting yourself. So this goes along, honestly, with a lot of our tips, but if you were a kid, maybe your parents made you eat your broccoli before eating dessert. Maybe your parents made you get your homework done before you went outside to play. And for a lot of us, once we got out of the structure of, being under our parents' roof, we thought, it's time to live the good life. It's time to stay up to 3 a.m. It's time to eat tubs of ice cream. It's time to, sleep in as long as I want. But then again, we find that ends up leading to a life of misery. So sometimes you've got to be that parent in your own life and tell yourself, you know what, no Netflix until after 8. Or, you know what, I'm not allowed to get on Instagram until I fill out this application, for example. So it's just another mindset change of actually talking to yourself and coaching yourself through what you know is best in the long run versus what is fun in the short term. All right, so the next one is a huge one, routines. We know them, we love them, we've all heard of it, but sometimes we still struggle to actually put it into place. So I'm sure you guys have heard the idea that, willpower is actually like a muscle that gets fatigued over time. So anytime you're trying to start a new habit, it takes an enormous amount of work. However, there's so many things that we do that are automated that are actually effortless. So that is the goal, is to take the daily practices that we want, put them into routine so that we get to a point where we hop out of bed and follow through without really having that deep angst and struggle. Now, how do you do that? You do it one small habit at a time. I'll go ahead and add in another technique here. We'll call it the Seinfeld technique. So basically somebody asked him, how do you become an awesome comedian? And he basically said, you write jokes every day. Sometimes the jokes are bad, sometimes they're great, sometimes they're mediocre, but that habit and action of writing the actual jokes every day is what creates a great comedian. And so basically he would have a method called Don't Break the Chain, where he would get a calendar and literally, like, every time he did his joke writing, he would draw a red line, and his goal for himself then became don't break the chain, do that small habit every single day. And that for him led to a life of amazing success. So it's the same with us. If we know, for example, that, reading our Bible in the morning is going to create a life that is filled with everything that we're wanting, then we need to start small and not break the chain. You can start with trying for 21 days, for 30 days, but try to kind of start building in small habits until they become automatic. Easy habits might only take 21 days. Hard habits might take as much as 66 days to really build, according to scientific studies. So it'll be up to you to kind of figure out, but eventually as you keep doing this small action over and over again, you'll find that it becomes automatic and it's not so difficult. All right, so I'm going to give you another tip. It's about the daily to-do list. We already talked about Mary Kay's 6th list, but there's some more information about having a daily to-do list. A lot of people recommend that you actually make your to-do list the night before for many, many reasons that I won't take the time to get into. But it's also important that you have 2 different to-do lists. You heard me, 2 different to-do lists. So one to-do list, we'll call it the eternal to-do list. Anytime something pops in your head that you need to do, just write it on your super long eternal to-do list. But that's going to be different than your daily list. So if you're following the 6th list method, you would look at your eternal to-do list basically every night before bed and pick what are my 6 things that I'm going to do tomorrow. So a lot of us that even like to-do lists might have the habit of having an incredibly long to-do list, and that just becomes a stressful burden. But if you pull things out every day and have a plan for your day, preferably before your day even gets started, then it's a lot easier to do. And then if you go back to the Eat That Frog method or the Mary Kay method, if you're constantly working on the most important things, then you're never going to get completely behind. So thank you if you've stuck this far. Thank you for watching this video. If there are any habits, mindsets, tips, or tricks that I missed, please type them below in the comment section. And any other video ideas that you would like to see, I'd love to hear about them. them. And if you want me to go more in depth on any of these particular principles, I'd be happy to do so. So I hope you guys like, comment, subscribe, and share, and have an awesome day. Bye for now.